Good morning. My name is Aranza. I will be your moderator for this session. I'm here to support you both as a presenter, you and the presenter. So if you have any questions or need help with Zoom during this interface, you can use the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, find my name, Aranza, and send a message directly to me. I will do my best to help you resolve your concerns. The title of today's session is called Design Thinking as Grand Learning Experience. And here is your presenter, Heather.
Hey everyone, I'm just going to give you a heads up. If for some reason you get bumped out of my session, I apologize. I'll be going ahead taking my video off when I do display my presentation, just so that we have hopefully a pretty streamlined presentation for you all today. So again, my name is Heather Hilz, and I'm extremely excited to be here with you all. And we do have a Mentimeter activity that I would like for you guys to participate, just to kind of break the ice. I'm going to get started with this. I think Aranza is going to share that link directly within the chat, but then I'm going to go ahead and present my screen so that you can see the presentation, and or if you have the presentation available to you, that Mentimeter code is there for you to go ahead and access. So again, welcome to Design Thinking, the Grand Learning Experience. And we're going to that second slide here where you'll see the Mentimeter code. And if you've never used Mentimeter previously as an educator, I think definitely during this time period within a virtual setting, you are going to find so much value from that in the sense that you are capable of doing polls with your students, getting feedback for your students, making really pretty word clouds with your students about the responses that they create. So I'll go ahead and give about 30 seconds for you to access that, and I'll go ahead and share what your results are. The question is, who has been an influential mentor to you? See it. Oh wow, look it. See, I always am so amazed that you can see this in real time. So let me go ahead and present. Hopefully that's not going to be a problem for us. But we see that we have two responses in there as to who is an influential mentor in your life. I saw that it said connection loss. I'm going to stop. There we go. Moms, I know. My mom's like my best friend. Former teachers, of course. That's why we as individuals are such influential people to our students at this time. Let me see if I can reload again. Looks like I'm having some buffering problems on that, and I'm going to go ahead and get back over to the presentation just so we don't get bumped out. But I'll share at the very end what those responses all were, and I'll get started with our session today. So again, my name is Heather Hilz Fitzgerald. I'm actually within the Romoland School District and was just put into place as the assistant principal over here at Boulder Ridge Elementary just last night by our board. So I'm extremely excited to take on this new role, and I'm extremely excited to be here at this point to share with you all a really intriguing way that we can help support our students during this distance learning time. And it's really taking our students to the next level with their instruction. Am I there now, Aranza? Let's see. Stop sharing.
Yes, you're all good, Heather.
Okay, I'm going to share again. Here we go. Okay, so one of the things that was really important to me during the time that we left for the closures of our schools was being able to provide our students with rigorous and really meaningful learning experiences. Within my role last year as an educational tech coach within the Romoland School District, one of the projects that we as a coaching team together worked on was to help develop instructional learning packets for students via distance learning, because we knew that some of our students wouldn't necessarily be able to access technology in the way that we would hope for, so we needed to provide them with some different type of learning options. So one area that I've been very passionate about for the last few years is the idea of design thinking and how design thinking can be connected to education. And so I was first inspired actually by attending an IAQ tech fair a few years back, and one of the presenters shared with us the product called Extraordinaires, and she showed us how she developed an entire classroom unit around the design thinking process, where students were able to analyze and understand specific characters and help design different types of products for those characters based on their needs. And so I thought that was such an amazing learning experience for our students, not only because it allowed them to include empathy within their instruction, but it also really engaged them in the fact that they were designing something that they felt was meaningful for someone, and they were able to really take their learning into their own hands. From there, I continued my research, and I really adore the idea of incorporating the sustainable goals within your classroom practices. And so within this slide deck, you'll notice that this has different hyperlinked options. That was a project created for a middle school setting where students could use this as an extracurricular activity for them to understand things that they're passionate about in the world, and then connect it in a cross-curricular approach, either through reading, writing, mathematics, and so on. And lastly, the one thing that I really focused on during our closure time period was that of brushing up and just strengthening my knowledge behind design learning. Recently went through Design to Learn with Lindsay Portnoy, and I really do feel that this is a really foundational piece of literature that can help restructure your entire classroom for the next school year. So that being said, I was inspired, and then ultimately I took these practices back to my classroom. And these are examples of my students from a couple years ago, and they're showcasing the projects that they created within either partnerships or individualized. But I just knew that this was something that I wanted to continue to share about with educators, because I think at this time period, we need to be mindful of what types of learning experiences we're providing to our students, meaning that these need to be grand learning experiences, relevant learning experiences, real-world scenario learning experiences, so that we continue to have the engagement, the motivation, and the rigor necessary for these students to succeed academically. So ultimately, what is design thinking? I'm just going to read the quote here from Tim Brown down below. It says, design thinking is the human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements of business success. So design thinking doesn't just take place within the educational system, and it actually didn't even really develop within the educational system. But a lot of times you see it in so many different occupational realms. But what you're noticing that with design thinking is it's a great structured process for you to organize a learning unit and have students really engage in meaningful aspects of their learning. So you'll notice that you start out with empathizing with some type of a scenario. I will say that I reflect mainly on Newsella or ReadWorks, depending on the grade level that you're going to be teaching at that time, but using those as the core literature piece, as the core type of topic to explore, that students can then understand what's happening to either the individual or the circumstance in society. And the next step you'll be going into is define, where from there, you'll go ahead and analyze the different problems that are taking place, where students are really going to begin thinking about what are possible solutions or supports that they are going to design in the future for them. They're going to then ideate, which means that they get to be very creative in the sense of what they want to provide for that specific individual or circumstance. They then actually build, where you're now getting into that project-based learning component, or even just the voice and choice of different ideas of what they want to present to their or present as they're learning. And lastly, the showcase element of testing out their product. So like I said previously, I really began to develop a system when it came to a design thinking process for pretty much my entire district. So we as a coaching team were asked to create these packets for our students, and because we know that not everybody has access to technology, or maybe it was sparse because one student was using the device while another student wasn't able to use the device within one home. And as I was designing things for our social studies component of the packets, I then began to kind of get discouraged in the sense of all of the things I was trying to collect to make it an engaging and relevant experience for these students. So really honing in on that idea of design thinking, I thought to myself, how can we structure these learning experiences to incorporate design thinking and also blend in cross-curricular approaches so that we have this grander experience of learning for students. And so if you look in your slide deck, all of these are going to be made available to you through hyperlinks. This is an entire folder filled with kinder through 8th grade design thinking units. I think there's 3 per grade level that you could use and modify for your classroom. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to go ahead and look at the first element of design thinking, and that is to empathize. And empathizing is going to really start with that idea of hooking your students in as to why this topic or why this scenario is going to be meaningful to them. Like I said previously, this is really where I'm going to hone into a core piece of literature. And obviously Newsella isn't the only resource that we could use. You have resources from your curriculum, resources just online, but using some type of core literature so we can establish that type of close reading component is going to be very beneficial at this time. Besides going directly into that read, I would also probably try to include another type of hook with your students, whether that be some type of a video, using the KWL chart to kind of gauge where students are specifically in their understanding of the topic, or even just showing like an image and allowing for discussion to take place. Discussion either synchronously during your Google Meets, or even using a Google Jamboard as a way to collect thoughts as to what that image is provoking or sparking in them. From there, as we then pull out some type of a meaningful topic to your students, and this picture right here is showing an example from a topic. I think that week I really wanted to just kind of give a focus of COVID to students and like how other people in the world were coping with it, because ultimately we want to provide different types of topics that are relevant to them at this time in their life, so that they feel like it's meaningful and they feel like they have a connection to it. So we would then pull that, engaging topic with them, and then doing a close read with them. In the previous session, I even had a teacher ask me in the comments about, guided reading with your students, especially for your littles. I definitely think that instructional time with your students should incorporate guided reading so that they get to see that modeled version of a teacher read aloud, where you're stopping, reflecting, note taking, and showing them all those skills.
possibly may not even be a synchronous type of experience. You could even do that asynchronously using Screencastify. So pre-recording yourself, reading through the article and showing them how we stop and reflect and take notes with those metacognitive skills. And then what's so great about Newsela, I will say, is that they do have that connection to like a quiz right after. So, hey, bonus points, you get a reading comprehension grade within that too. After the reading does take place, then this is where we are going to allow them to reflect on their reading, either verbally or through written word. And so you'll see kind of down here at the bottom, and I'm scared to go into like full presentation mode and to like click on anything so I don't get bumped out. But you'll notice that there's just a little area or section for students to go ahead and look at the article, reflect on the article, who's in the article, right? And what matters to them. And I definitely believe during this first go around with your students, all of these steps through the design thinking process should be done together as a whole group and modeled, provided with sentence frames and whatnot. That way you are setting them up for success and showing them the expectations of what you want them to do and show for their learning. So again, I'm always really big on that cross-curricular approach. So after that read, what are we going to back it up with to make meaningful connections to the priority standards that we're trying to have our students master at that time? So again, making connections to comprehension strategies immediately, maybe after that second close read. These are all graphic organizers that could be copy and pasted into either a Google Doc. I prefer Google Slides, and then making my Google Slides the same dimensions of a piece of paper, just because it's a lot more user friendly than the Google Docs. You can move things and float things around a lot nicer. But giving opportunities for them to dive deeper into that literature through whatever comprehension strategy. And then again, also reflecting on the instructional strategies of EduProtocols, which they also incorporate mathematics within. So you can use like a number mania data collection form, and students could work collaboratively on this form, pulling out the information that has numerical representation, and then going ahead and, coming together and create a collective infographic that would represent the numbers of that scenario within the article. And obviously so on and so on. There's so many great different types of learning tools with the EduProtocols that you could use. Okay. So after we've empathized, the next component is going to be the define section. Again, going back to that idea of that close read. So students really analyzing or retracing their note-taking to understand all of the important aspects or components to the scenario or to the individual's problem. The students then can either work independently or in partners or in groups to define what they feel that problem is that they're learning about. And like I said, the first go around, definitely do this as a whole group so that your students know how to follow, the steps correctly, and so that there isn't any misunderstandings, right? So from there, they also are going to generate a problem statement. That problem statement is extremely important because that's going to drive their entire research for the rest of the unit. And then from there, just kind of honing in on specifics of the problem, what are the things that they may still need to learn about so that they could do some extra research, which is a great opportunity to help support students with their media literacy skills, going in and showing them how they can find credible information online is also something that we may need to do at the beginning of the school year with our students so that they're successful while accessing content online. And from there, they could go in and start to come up with some snippet ideas of what those specific individuals or what that scenario needs in order to be solved. And what would be really great is if students could then share those different types of needs so that they can get different types of feedback from either the teacher themselves or even from their peers, to either make the edits, revisions, or confirm that those are good ideas to continue their research on. My favorite part, which is the creative part, is ideating. And so from all of the research and analyzing that they've done, the inference building that they've done within that empathizing and defining section, they're now going to be able to translate that into their solution. So beginning to brainstorm, and really right now there isn't a right or wrong answer. We want them to put out as much as they can onto this cloud so that they feel that they've given every possible solution necessary. Once they've done that though, they will need to narrow those down into 3 specific ideas as to how to solve the problem. And this is an excellent time for students to possibly share what they are planning on creating or continuing on with their project. So obviously this could be a Google Meet session, maybe on a fun Friday where students have a quick little presentation, maybe just 1 minute, as to pitching their ideas to the students and then somehow collecting data or information on which one they should go through. So like Mentimeter would be perfect for that, for students to then give feedback to the students on what project they should go for. Now, if you're looking at your next step, this is where the bulk of your time is probably going to be spent. And this is where we do need to give a lot of flexibility and grace in the sense of our expectations. So the prototype is where they're actually going to be able to take form of their solution. And so what I wanted to do during this time period, because this was based on like packets and not necessarily a complete virtual setting at the time, because we didn't know what students had available to them, or we didn't know circumstances of home. So we wanted to make sure that we gave lots of opportunities for different types of prototypes to be created. Some of the things that they would have available for them to go ahead and show their product would be possibly like creating a website. They could use their voice in recording a podcast. They could draw or digitally design an advertisement for what that product was. They could have recorded a video. Some of our avid writers could even create some type of an informational report, or possibly even a narrative about the product being used by their individual. They could be hands-on and tactile, actually building what product they wanted. When I was in the classroom and those students were able to go ahead and build those items, we asked that they just shared any household items that they weren't using. We looked around the school, and obviously I provided a lot of crafting type of materials for them as well, and gave them opportunities in the classroom to work together to hands-on create something that could be eventually presented to their peers. Blueprints are always a really great option. And then being open and flexible to maybe possibly having your students give an idea themselves as to what they would want to create. Say, for example, you have access to a 3D printer. Maybe that could be something that they create. A TikTok video, especially for like our middle school and high school students. So just being open to letting them share what they want to during this time period has to be at the forefront. And you'll also just be so surprised as to what they actually are able to provide and to submit to you. So the last component is that testing component. And this is really where the students are going to have that final showcasing of what they've created based on their prototype. And it's also a really great place for them to reflect. So they will be able to finalize the name of their design, let us know what things went into the design, and ultimately provide the concept of how is this going to help the individual, or how is this going to help the situation? And obviously, if we're not in a face-to-face setting, it will be, we'll just have to figure out in a different way of how you'll showcase and share with others. But obviously, things such as your Google Meet time, or even a designated flip grid, will be a perfect opportunity for students to verbalize what they have created for their solution. And then really going back and having them, after they've received feedback, to talk about the things that went well with the design and what things that didn't go so well. And you could possibly then have this go into another session of revision, and then have them again once share their final product, so that we're constantly showing them that things can be modified and updated in order for them to always work better or be better. Now, obviously, you've gone through that design thinking process with your students, but you want to incorporate so much more based on the academics. And so if you're noticing with the connections to ELA, we talked about the close reading components and connecting it to comprehension strategies. But there's so much more into it, because they are presenting, they are writing about what they're creating. I think this might be, let's see if it works. Let me go back out really quick. This was a student who had created a product based on an eco-friendly product. It's kind of my take of this, the Thin Slides Edu protocol, but I think he did an excellent job of reflecting on the product that he had created that's going to be eco-friendly. And so you'll see that
He has a written response as to what he had created. He actually designed this within Tinkercad and gave us all of the logistics about that product and how it will support and even how much it costs. So, and this is in a shared slide deck, which is obviously like really amazing during our virtual time periods, that students can create these things and then share with their peers so that they can be inspired by each other as well. Your connection to mathematics, so really looking at those topics that you are providing to your students. So either, you know, a social justice topic or an individual topic. We want to try to connect it to mathematics as closely as we can. So I really always love the idea of creating word problems that reflect the topic. I also think that it's vital for us to analyze numbers within literature and show the importance of mathematics in that sense. And then a lot of times making those grand learning experiences through other project-based learning type of approaches. This is a slide deck of a set of station rotations I had used previously, like within a 5th grade classroom. But one of the things that I always wanted to do is not necessarily provide just the concepts and procedures type of activities to our students, but having them learn their standard necessary for success and then actually creating and designing with that. So here they're going to be creating a tiny house design. Here they were creating an earthwise commune. See how fun that is, right? And so just making it connected to something that's relevant in the world that they may see one day or that they may already be aware of anyways. So again, I'm always like a little quick on that, but that allows me to go ahead and go back and answer some questions and hear any of your comments or suggestions. There is a survey there. That's my personal survey that will take me back to gathering your guys' thoughts and ideas in that sense. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing, and then I'll go to here. Let's see what happens. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. Okay. So first off, I see my buddy Tori's in here. What up, Tori? How do we access the Mentimeter? Never mind, they found it. We have a Paris. Awesome.
We have AP from Paris Elementary School. Hi, you are our little neighbor, right? Our Paris neighbor. Let's see. Okay, everybody's muted. Okay, what a treasure trove. Hello, hello. So are there any questions or any ideas or thoughts that you would like to add into our comments at this point? That way we can go ahead and address them together. And I would just love to hear from you all about how you would possibly incorporate design thinking into your own classroom when you're connecting it to some type of either math or language arts topic. Hey, Sue, I see you. I wonder if we can go back to the Mentimeters and see anything. How can the library support this concept? That's a really great question. So let me ponder for a second. I definitely always was reaching out to my librarian in the sense of accessing literature that I thought was going to be connected to topics that are relevant to today, like today's topics in the world. I definitely think providing science literature and historical literature, culturally diverse literature will be extremely relevant at this time, because yes, it's always fun to go ahead and access things online, but there's something to be said about books. Books are right there in your hands. They definitely are great because the imagery that's represented there. And so having a plethora of science, history, culturally proficient books would be a great tool for teachers to get from the library. Also, if you're thinking about the library and how we've had a big transition recently about looking at the library in a different lens as possibly a makerspace kind of environment, this could be a great place for you to develop that space for your teachers. So a lot of times this design thinking incorporates hands-on activities or, they're building things. So providing a makerspace type of section in the library where students can come and build, where students could come and record, like a really cool working space, I think would be very beneficial too. I'm reading Sue's comment right now. So she says, I'm wondering about using design thinking with your students to design your classroom setup for virtual spaces. How can they think about the ways they like to learn and what that means in this time? No, that's not meta. That is like, that would be like my go-to first day activity with the kids. Think about after you've done the culture building that you need to of getting to know your students, just like personally them getting to know you within the like first hour, just dropping that idea on them, I think would totally engage them and would allow you to be aware of what they needed to be successful. So I think that first day or second day topic, and boom, you can already cross-curricular that with writing pieces or talk about geometry and how we're going to design the room using geometrical shapes. Love it. Does anyone in the chat want to include maybe a specific topic that you think would be relevant to discuss with students at this time, where they could go through the design thinking process, just so that people might have ideas of what they want to have their students explore and research? Patience, right? Patience. One thing I will do is actually, I will go back to that Mentimeter and see if we got the final results for that. So I'm not going to share my screen yet, just so that it doesn't overload what's happening. Oh, thank you, Aranda. Okay, so I would like ideas for using this with ELA. I will say that going into use ELA, going into your own curriculum and looking at literature directly within there, and especially I say falling upon the nonfiction literature is going to be an easier way for you to design these experiences. But as soon as you attach that piece of literature with this, it just kind of all flows naturally from there. Sierra, I know who you are. I follow you on Twitter, and I've been to some of your sessions before. And yes, I think that would be awesome to design a piece of art for a client. I love art too, so any way that I can provide opportunities for students to design or create is extremely beneficial for not only the students, but for me, because I love seeing what they make. Theater teacher here, everything we do is design thinking. This is great. Oh, that's so cool. Could you give me an example, Cassie, about that? Okay, I'm gonna go back to the Mentimeter. Aranza gave me the link so I can do it quickly. Oh no, I have to do it this way. Let's see, Mentimeter.
Mentor. Okay, here I'll go to Zoom, present with you all. So Cassie replied, we have student designers for all productions. Wow, that's so cool. So they build the audience experiences for the bottom up, costume designers, sound designers. That's extremely nice, you know, especially in the world we live today, being aware of like the clients or, you know, our audience, being mindful of what we're putting out there and making sure that they're happy, healthy, and safe is extremely important. So I love that you're incorporating that into theater, because then your audience is probably being extremely pleased. I love it. I have a PE teacher also talking about using design thinking. I think that would be so cool. And they're writing scripts for a short film festival. Yes, I agree. Like, design thinking can be used in any component of education, and therefore it's used all over all different type of occupational, you know, areas. So I did find I'll present here with you guys. Let me share my desktop so that you guys can see those final results of the influential mentor. I'm hoping that it's not going to be too much, but there they are. An older and wise friend. I like that. I'm sure that person has been a wealth of knowledge for you, your colleagues, right? Right now we need on each other, teachers, for all of the great work that we all do and all of the great, even the moment of this chat, we can see that we'll have sparked ideas that can work with their, oops, I'm not sure. Hopefully I wasn't buffering the whole time, I apologize. Okay, so costume design, perfect. So if there's any last added ideas, or if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to take a virtual break and you know, get ready for our next session. I think it's our lunch session, and I enjoyed being here. I love sharing with you all. If you need anything from me, or you need me to provide access to anything for you, feel free to reach out. But I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and have a great rest of your Google Camp. Bye now.